Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerate it. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Monday, start of a new week, and so we're going to start off with a lot of disastrous stories today. So hopefully you're ready for that. Now, we've had the end of the DNC, we've got the end of the RNC. Both of those conventions are over. It's Biden versus Trump, so you can take that if you will. There's also the People's Convention going on right now. So you have speakers like Nina Turner and Ryan Knight. So that's awesome. Maybe I should check in with them at some point during the week and show some of those speeches because that's what progressives are talking about. And so, yeah, I'll probably check in with those because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of greatness going on there. That said, we've got a focus today on, of course, what's going on in Kenosha, what's going on in Portland. We've got white supremacy, we've got neo-Nazis, and so disaster. We also have zombie Herman Cain making an appearance again. We've got conservatives doing what conservatives do best, bullshit. And so I get the latest example of that, trying to paint Biden. And this is hilarious, right? I mean, it would be hilarious if they weren't actually being pretty effective at it. Trying to paint Joe Biden as trying to paint Joe Biden as the person who's going to, let anarchy reign. I mean, like, you're kidding, right? You're kidding. The 94 crime bill guy. The tough on crime throughout his entire career guy. He's the one who somehow is going to make sure that, I'm having some technical issues here on Facebook, unfortunately. So I will not be able to stream on Facebook. That's a bummer. All right. But anyway, like I said, they're trying to paint Biden as some sort of anarchist, which is hilarious and ridiculous. So, all right. Anyway, so we've got that. We do have a special announcement, by the way. Just a little bit of a teaser here. So I'm working on getting a pretty big guest for the podcast. So like, you guys haven't heard the podcast in a while because I haven't done one in a while. The last one was with the late Michael Brooks. But I am getting together a guest that's going to be pretty awesome and pretty large. And so you're not going to want to miss that. I'll let you guys know about the details when we get to it, when we know more about the timing, and then I'll reveal, of course, who it is. So it'll be great. Should be pretty awesome. All right. Anyway, stories that we're going to talk about. We've got donations from neo-Nazis going to Donald Trump. We've got, as I said, a progressive activist is getting his video manipulated. We've got the Wall Street Journal coming out hard against Donald Trump. We have Herman Cain and a story on Brianna Taylor that's going to just infuriate you. So, fun times. All right. That said, I guess let's get started in our first story here. And that's some sketchy donations. President Donald Trump's re-election campaign has reportedly accepted donations from neo-Nazis. So now, this is according to an expose in Popular Information. The Trump campaign has accepted thousands of dollars from the heads of neo-Nazi groups. Now, let me detail who is giving this money to the Trump campaign and what the Trump campaign is doing about it. Because, well, they obviously, I mean, they're going to have to see it like taking money from neo-Nazi white supremacist groups is I mean, pretty disastrous, right? So now, let me give you the details on this. So now, the Trump campaign has taken at least $2,000 from a man named Morris Goulet. Goulet is the head of an Aryan Nations outpost in Louisiana. Now, let's see. The campaign's also accepted donations from a businessman named Peter Ziv, who was sued by the state of Washington for discrimination against minorities, and of course, spreading racist views to his employees, and trying to encourage them with bonuses to get married to people of the same race and to have children of the same race. Fascinating. So now, Goulet, going back to him, or Goulet, is a leader of the White Nationalist Church of Jesus Christ Christian. Again, that is a part of the group Aryan Nations. So now, that was founded, by the way, back in 1946 by KKK organizer Wesley Swift, and had recently been sued and actually had their name taken away back in 2001 by people who were attacked by paramilitary soldiers belonging to the group. So now in 2009, they came back and adopted this name and new leadership. And so now, why is this a racist organization? Well, the cash from Goulet's website back in 2016 promoted white Anglo-Saxons as the, quote, supreme ruling race. So that kind of, is a bit of a red flag. Okay. So now the same website also described the miscegenation and integration as a abomination to he who created us. And then, of course, Goulet himself ends every sermon with a Nazi salute, just in case you were wondering. So now, what's interesting about this Aryan Nation group is the fact that they're in because when you look into them, right, in their belief system, they have no allegiance to the United States or to the United States government at all. So not to the government or to the United States, but want to, of course, to create a white ethno-state. And so now, why then would you give money to a presidential candidate? That seems odd, right? It seems very odd that you would do that, and you would even try to get involved in electoral politics if you have no allegiance to this country whatsoever. That's super strange, right? But I think there may be a reason, and it's because Donald Trump's been very accepting of people who happen to have the goals of creating a white ethno state. He also signals that he doesn't like the same people that they hate, or is at least, even if he's not, hateful, right, towards certain people, he's open to having people around him that are hateful, right? And so at the very least, he allows this to happen. And so now, going to Peter Ziv here. So now, I mentioned that he was trying to, give these bonuses to people to marry within their own race, right? And to have children of their own race. He actually offered a $1,000 procreation bonus in order to prevent minorities from outnumbering white people in the United States. In a February 6, 2015 email, Zaev stated that he found immigrants from developing countries, quote, repulsive and didn't want them around me, just in case you were wondering who he is. And in an October 2nd, 2015 email announcing the birth of his own daughter, Zev said that, quote, 381,000 terrorist savages have gotten into Europe so far this year, and if we don't make more babies, the light will go out in our civilization. And so just to show you who that guy is and what he believes. Okay, so there's that. All right. So a lot of these guys are part of the great replacement people, right? Kind of like Steve King. You remember Steve King, one of the most racist members of Congress, who went out and would give interviews where he says, "Well, look, we can't rebuild our civilization, meaning white people, with somebody else's babies." Okay, so understand these are the people that support Donald Trump and who he ultimately is empowering. And so that's why people like me are saying, hey, I'm not a fan of Biden, but that's like, here's the alternative, right? Not a fan of the alternative, okay? Because that's these people, right? Who would love to see anybody who is not white and Christian get removed from this country or worse. So now you might think, okay, guys, Jeff, it's not really unfair to point out one or two terrible donors. I mean, look, not every campaign is going to know, especially a campaign as big as Trump's, who was donating to those campaigns, right? All right, well, okay, that's a fair point, right? And so, well, there were groups that found these donations through FEC filings and said, hey, you've got some white supremacists that are donating to your campaign. Maybe you should return that donation and swear off donations from these people, right? Did that happen? No. Let me give you the details. Gullett's contributions were brought to the attention of the Trump campaign back in July of 2018 by The Forward. At the time, Gullett had only donated to the Trump campaign about 3 times for a total of $200. Current donations stand at about $2,000. Trump campaign did not respond to a request for comment from The Forward, and also it did not respond to a request for comment by the Popular Information about Gullett's continued donations. Fascinating. Now you might also think, well, look, okay, these are small donations, $2,000, a few $100s here and there. Okay, these are some obscure people, right? And it's not indicative of Donald Trump being a racist or supporting racists. Well, I got news for you on that one. Look, one of the biggest supporters of Trump's re-election campaign is a man named Timothy Mellon, a reclusive heir to the wealthy Mellon family fortune. Mellon has donated $10 million to America First Action, the approved super PAC of Trump's 2020 campaign. America First Action is chaired by Linda McMahon, a former member of Trump's cabinet, and Stockwood alums of the Trump campaign and Trump White House. So what does Mellon believe? In a self-published autobiography, so it's not like it's somebody writing about him. No, these are his own words. Mellon wrote that social programs have made Black people belligerent and unwilling to pitch in to improve their own situations. And he also writes of people who benefit from social programs like nutrition assistance or the ACA, Obamacare, as, quote, slaves of a new master, Uncle Sam. Mellon also described Black studies, women's studies, LGBT studies as, quote, meaningless tripe designed to brainwash gullible young adults into going along with dependency syndrome. And not at all, looking and highlighting their history and the fight for their own American civil rights. No, none of that, just dependency syndrome. Wow. Mellon, by the way, has made some large contributions to the Congressional Leadership Fund of about $20 million, $10 million to Republican Senate leadership. 2 super PACs working to elect Republicans to Congress, and 1 max donation, and this is weird, one $2,700 max donation to AOC in 2018. What? That is weird. Why would you say all that stuff and then donate to AOC? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know, man. I don't know. Now, a spokesperson for Ocasio-Cortez told the Washington Post back at that time, which first reported on Mellon's autobiography, that she would return the contribution, and of course she did, because she didn't want people like that supporting her and giving her campaign money. But did Trump? No. He's like, oh yeah, I take your money. I don't care. I don't care what you said in your autobiography. I'll just call it fake news if somebody else, brings it up later on. I don't care. Give me the money. Give me the money. Give me the money. Just give it. I don't care what you say, right? I mean, again, why would you return money to people that you agree with on a fundamental level? Look, I don't know what it is, man. If Donald Trump isn't a racist like they claim, right, then why do racists seem to like him so much? It's something that they could never really answer, right? Why do they seem to like that campaign? Why do they seem to like giving them money, et cetera, right? It's kind of weird, right? And so, look, these are the people, by the way, these are the people that are in power, that are empowered by this current administration. Look, man, I know you guys will hate when I do this, right? But if you're in a swing state, maybe you should consider not voting or not allowing these people to continue to be in power, whether you're voting down ballot progressive or even say, voting for Joe Biden, just to be against these people to keep them out of power. I would urge you to do that. Again, your vote's your own thing. I'm not going to vote shame you for that. But I would just say that, look, it's much more difficult to fight these people and their ideologies. It's much more difficult to fight against them if they're given institutional, or if they're allowed to have a large degree of institutional power. So just consider that. All right. Now, following the violence in Kenosha that cost the lives of 2 BLM protesters and the death of a Trump supporter in Portland after BLM and right-wing counter-protesters clashed, leading to, of course, to his death, the Wall Street Journal editorial board has printed a scathing criticism of President Trump. So now that's fairly interesting because the Wall Street Journal isn't exactly the liberal bastion, but I'm going to explain, of course, what they're doing when it comes to this. Now, first, obviously, much of the Wall Street Journal editorial board did blame the mayor of Portland for letting violence in the city get out of control, because Democrat mayors, right? So it's the Wall Street Journal. What do you expect? They have to do the both sides thing. It's their fault, both sides' fault. Nobody, the truth's really in the middle, right? But in part of the doing the both sides thing, they again go after Donald Trump by saying that Trump needed to stop egging on armed protesters and bringing them and basically encouraging them to go out and protest against BLM. So now they wrote, Mr. Trump would help Portland in his own political cause if he called for calm on all sides. This includes his supporters who rolled into Portland for a counter-protest on Saturday, again, which led to, of course, to the clashes. The editorial board added that Mr. Trump should tell his supporters to stay away from Portland, Kenosha, and other cities where rioters reign. Again, Wall Street Journal. So here's the thing, right? Look, if we're going to keep having armed right wing groups going to these cities, going to BLM protests, you're going to have violence. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion at this point, right? That's not an accident, though. This is why they go. This is why they go. The right wing protesters, look, they either want to go kill members of BLM or to become martyrs themselves. Look, the only reason to openly bring a gun to a protest is that you hope you can use it. Like, you can't wait to use it. All right. Now, look, that's different than having concealed carry, right? Which for most cases, I believe that that's personal protection, right? So personal defense. You're not out there displaying a weapon openly. All right. Which again is confrontation. Okay. Open carrying in a time of incredibly high emotion and tension is just asking for that confrontation. And yes, we've had some. We've had some. That's what's happened. All right. So now, again, Kenosha, right? So you had Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse is, of course, a 17-year-old domestic terrorist that was charged with the murder of 2 protesters. He went there. He broke several laws in order to go there to protect property that didn't belong to him. Look, in a lot of states, speaking just legally, right? You cannot legally shoot and kill someone attempting to steal property. Now, if your life is in danger during the attempt of that theft, then you're able to use deadly force to reasonably defend yourself. That's according to the law, right? So, for example, somebody breaks in your house, steals your TV, right? And then runs away when you confront them. Well, you're not allowed to shoot them in the back. You can't do that, according to the law, right? So now, if they pull a knife or a gun on you, like say they put the TV down and they threaten you with a knife or a gun, then you are legally able to stand your ground in certain states. And so, you're allowed to do that. So now we find out over the weekend that one of Rittenhouse's victims was shot in the back 3 times. So was he running away? Well, you can't just get shot in the back if you're running towards someone. And so you can reasonably deduce that that first victim was the first victim, shot in the back 3 times, that the person with the skateboard that, conservatives are saying, oh, he's the aggressor. The mob was running after him and he had to defend himself against the skateboard guy. You can say that skateboard guy was actually trying to disarm an active shooter in the area and was killed in that in basically that attempt, right? And so you can look at the whole idea of him, quote unquote, defending himself that conservatives are pushing, kind of an absurd notion. Again, in many states, you are not allowed to employ deadly force against rioters and looters. Or in the case of a lot of these protests, just protesters in general. It's not a stand your ground case, right? It's a case where Rittenhouse and a group of white supremacists, they decided to cross state lines in order to go, I think, hunting for rioters and looters and BLM. And again, this is after being egged on by Donald Trump and egged on by right-wing media. For example, Tucker Carlson has been running segments on his show for the last few months, basically saying that the rioters and looters, they're coming for you. They're coming to your house. They're going to break into you. They're going to kill you all if you don't take a stand, if you don't fight against them. Well, I mean, if you're an idiot and you're easily scared, what are you going to think? I got to go. I got to go on the offensive. I got to stop BLM from coming for my family, right? And so he's not the only one, by the way, Tucker Carlson. Right-wing media has been pushing this for a long time. And so, I mean, now there's more, okay? So now what's interesting is that Hate Watch also released recently released an article of a person who actually marched and went to the protest with Rittenhouse, right? So now this person was there. I'm not going to identify them by their name, but this person was deeply immersed in Nazi propaganda. The person was tied to a Twitter account who linked to a website that featured video of, basically a bunch of Hitler speeches titled "Truth Will Triumph," Adolf Hitler. That video was shared by white nationalist Richard Spencer, and other right-wing figures had been notified of the video as well. So, look, it's ironic too. That same person, again, marched with Rittenhouse, was part of the group that went there, right? Was a supporter of the Boogaloo movement. Now, I've reported on the Boogaloos before, right? They've ironically killed police officers. So much for law and order. No, these people were looking for a confrontation. That's all they were doing. They weren't here to protect property. They weren't there to protect anything. They were there to kill. And that's what it was all about. And so these are the type of people that march with Rittenhouse. And so, just like Rittenhouse, we're deeply radicalized by the right wing. So it's pretty ridiculous to see people do the both sides thing, right? So now one side, of course, has the goal of preventing the deaths of unarmed black people by police. And so, yeah, maybe they do it in a way that's unpalatable for you by doing property destruction, right? And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that's exactly what's happening, okay? Now, the other side grabs their guns and goes hunting. And that's what it is. These two sides are not equal. Even if there is property destruction or vandalism or theft, that's not the same. That's not equal to killing people. And by the way, theft of property is not a moral or legal justification for the murder of other people. I mean, the law is pretty clear on this, right? Only when there's a significant threat to yourself are you able to use deadly force, so long as you're not the aggressor. If you're committing a crime or in the process of committing a crime and someone comes at you with a skateboard to try to stop you from committing said crime, well, you're not justified, according to the law, in defending yourself with deadly force. Kyle Rittenhouse was in the middle of committing several crimes at the same time and had committed several crimes. And yet the police in Kenosha ignored him completely. Why? Because, well, police in Kenosha, they actually don't really, they don't really enforce the law. Their whole purpose is to protect property. And that's really it. That's what it comes down to. Okay. But as I said before, the two sides are not equal. And the president and the right wing are egging more people to come in and to shoot protesters. I mean, the cops are letting it happen because they want to. Okay. So one more thing to point out here. Why is the Wall Street Journal doing this both sides thing? Okay. Well, it's because they want to appear, maybe this is the good neutral party, right? Hey, we care about everybody. We don't like the things on both sides. I mean, it's mainly the Democrats' fault because it's a Democratic city, but naughty Trump for egging them on, right? Why can't we just get along? Both sides. Everything's equal. And now Joe Biden is even saying both sides. Both sides. But this is what frustrates me greatly. And unfortunately, this is how our media does things, right? So they talk and focus more on the, looting as opposed to what led to it, right? The situation. And of course, it's the taking of black lives by police. And these are normally usually unarmed black people. And so who knows, maybe if we actually started framing it as looting black communities, they might actually listen. I mean, and one more thing, right? Before I forget. This could be one way to reinforce the conservative anti-Trump narrative as Trump not being like other conservatives. Despite, of course, a lot of conservatives loving Donald Trump. He's got an over, 80%, probably about back up to 90% approval rating when it comes to the Republican Party. Maybe it's one of those things where it's like, Trump doesn't actually represent us, even though, we agree with just about everything that he says and does, but he's too loud. And so we're going to denounce it now so that, we can continue to get people into power once Donald Trump is out of it, out of power. And we'll still have people there who believe the same things and push the same kind of policies. So, look, I don't know. Maybe. So, just keep that in mind, by the way. The next time you hear somebody conflate the protests with riots and looting, which it's not, and the right wing response being armed militias converging on these areas with the tacit approval of local law enforcement. All right. Actually, you know what? Here I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. So we're going to come back. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about how Republicans are manipulating social media videos specifically. So, fun times. Stay right here. Be right back. Around the Nation.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Mike Pounds.
Everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Let's see. So I want to thank some patrons. It's patreon.com/Waldorf. Greg Letcher and Sam Schaefer. Thank you for, of course, supporting independent progressive media. Please sign up to help us out. Let's see. Channel members, another way you can help the show. Kevin Myers and Dana Fairbanks. Thank you for signing up. You can become a channel member by hitting the join button below. All right. So with that, let's dive into the next story here. We've got conservatives manipulating video. Conservatives on Twitter were caught manipulating an interview between Joe Biden and activist Addie Barkan. So now there's a video that has been taken down by Twitter, which was widely shared by conservatives, is put into context of the Biden supporting the elimination of police narrative, right? So no, that's a policy position that Joe Biden does not support or endorse. In fact, he's not in support of defunding police. He says that very clearly, and had at one point tried to push for more funding of police. So it's kind of a weird thing that they're trying to do, like to say that Joe Biden is in favor of anarchy and all that stuff and mob rule and all that stuff. And so nonetheless, two high-profile conservatives shared this video. One of them was Steve Scalise, who was the number 2 House Republican. So here's what he tweeted along with the video. He said, "No police, mob rule, total chaos. That's the result of the Democrat agenda. Ask yourself, is this what you want in your town next?" As if, you know, and if our BLM are going to come to like your bumfuck town in like Alabama with 1,000 people in it. You're kidding, right? But okay. All right. Sure. So now in this initial interview, Barkan, who uses an artificial voice due to ALS, asked Biden if we agree that we can redirect some funding towards public safety and mental health services. Biden says yes. Now the clip Scalise tweeted, however, inserts the words "for police" into Barkan's question using the same computer-generated voice. And so that's actually pretty easy to do. And so, in fact, you know what? Let me show you the original video so that you have context, right? And again, I can't show you the doctored video because it got like eliminated from Twitter and the tweet deleted and everything like that. So let me just show you the original.
There's a whole range of things that we can do. The idea of no-knock warrants for drug cases is bizarre. We don't need that. It just invites trouble. That's how Brianna was killed. There's a need for fundamental change in us being able to have transparency, be able to have access to the records of police when they have misconduct charges against them, to be able to know where they are, so they can't go from one police department to the next. That should be held in my administration. That information will have to be made available to the Justice Department and held in a file, so you'll be able to track this. Surplus military equipment for law enforcement. They don't need that. The last thing you need is an up-armored Humvee coming into a neighborhood. It's like the military invading. They don't know anybody. They become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting these people. So my generic point is that...
Do we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that we also need to be doing is fundamentally changing the way, and I've been pushing it for years, changing the way we deal with our prison system.
All right. So look, I showed you all that because of the context, right? So Biden's going on about, you know, what he would do to change this and that. And Barkan comes in and asks, you know, hey, can we, you know, agree to redirect some of the funding? All right. So now you can make the case based on that say Biden supports defunding the police. So you were right. Biden supports defunding the police. okay, hey, if you listen to that, okay, that's kind of the, that's kind of the impression that I got, to be honest with you, when I watched this video. Like, yeah, okay, you redirect some of the funding away from police to mental health services and public safety. Okay. But I'm actually in support of that position, and I'm honest about that. And so, yeah. And of course, why then would conservatives need to add in that for police, right? Why did you need to doctor the video to add in something that he didn't actually say? My guess is because they needed to spell it out, because people are dumb. Or at least they assume their supporters are too dumb to pick up on that. I mean, again, Biden did say, yes, we can redirect some of the funding towards mental health and public safety. That's actually a pretty light position compared to what people are asking for in the left. Okay. Because as I also know, Biden has said very publicly not to fund the police. So now who do I believe, right? Joe Biden, who, does have a history of being less than honest about certain things. And, well, other factors, for example, his record, right? So you can look at Biden's history of not being honest and the history of being super tough on crime, including the 94 crime bill, which he co-authored. I doubt very much that knowing, the Biden of the past and the Biden that we had during the Obama administration, which saw armored vehicles rolling up on communities, as well as, issues when you had Standing Rock, for example, protests against oil pipelines and things like that. The Obama administration, fairly tough. And so, no, I don't think that, I doubt very much that it's going to try to defund the police at all. And so it's probably just saying one thing and say, oh, yeah, we totally do that. And then planning to do something else. Come on. All right. So, no, that's it. It's kind of hilarious how they've gone in on the all-in on the Biden wants to eliminate the police. The mob rule. Really? Isn't that completely, totally inconsistent with the messaging that Republicans talk about when it comes to government? Like, wasn't a few months ago that conservatives were saying that liberals want the government to control your life? Wouldn't that not consist of a large government enforcement agency to police people? I mean, the whole thing about PC culture, PC police, bit ironic. I mean, how else would you, I guess, enforce all the things that they say liberals want to do? I mean, look, from what I can understand, here you had, conservatives wanting more military spending, bigger government, especially when it comes to abortion, right? Getting in between a woman and her choice, oppressing black people, black communities by over policing them. Doesn't really make any sense. There's like no consistency here. Okay, there's no consistency at all. And it's because I think Republicans are a reactionary party. I mean, you don't need to be consistent on policy when your only purpose is to be contrarian. 100%. I mean, again, Republicans love to talk about wealthy, educated elites and how much they hate them, right? While giving those same elites trillions of dollars in tax cuts and special breaks. It's kind of weird when you think about it, right? They hate celebrities. Hollywood, terrible. Yet they keep electing them, Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. They hate big government, love getting into your bedroom. They like over-policing, if you're black, and growing the military-industrial complex to enormous levels, unfathomable levels, while also at the same time telling people that you need to stock weapons just in case your government has become too big and tyrannical. Really? The contradictions never end. Okay, it never ends. And of course, to try to make it make sense, well, they got to lie and distort and convince people not to trust anybody except for their approved sources of propaganda, which now seem to include doctored videos and unsourced Facebook memes. That said, Barkin, not happy about this, right? So he called on Steve Scalise to remove the video. tweeting, quote, "I have lost my ability to speak, but not my agency or my thoughts. You and your team have doctored my words for your own political gain. Please remove this video immediately. You owe the entire disability community an apology." And Liz Jaff, who co-founded the Be Your Hero PAC with Barkin, condemned the tweet, saying, "To change his words like this is horrific." Now, the video, again, in the tweet no longer exists online because, oops, they got caught. I mean, that's what happens, right? But here's the thing about this, okay? I mean, it feels like we're constantly on the defensive against mountains of bullshit. I just constantly, right? It's as if people are constantly churning out garbage to try to keep us from, pushing progressive policy and to keep us, defending our own positions or making us having to focus on pushing back against just absolute nonsense, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be effective. It kind of makes you wonder if all we really do on indie media is even having any sort of an impact or even worth it because of how much we are constantly swamped with just right-wing establishment propaganda. And so it really is kind of frustrating here. And just to see, because every day it's something new, something different, and always horrible. All right. So let's switch gears. Should have put grave mistake. Didn't think about it. All right. The zombie Twitter account of Herman Cain is now out downplaying the thing that killed its previous owner. So now the account, run by a family and friends, I guess, or staff members of Herman Cain, previously, who ran the account, tweeted recently out a message insisting that the coronavirus is not as deadly as once thought. The coronavirus, the thing that killed Herman Cain. Cain died in July at age 74 after being hospitalized with COVID-19 for a month. I mean, that's kind of weird. I mean, I would say for Herman Cain, coronavirus was quite deadly. I mean, look, Cain was older. He had apparently some underlying health conditions, otherwise known as comorbidities, which make the virus more deadly to a person that has those conditions. Weak immunity, I believe, from fighting cancer. I don't know what else he had, but I know that diabetes, heart problems, things like that, they make COVID-19 deadlier. So it is quite ironic that people would use Herman Cain's account to push the idea that the media is, for one, overhyping the deaths, right? It's overhyping in order to push a political lockdown that we all hate, by the way, because all of us hate the lockdowns. I don't like it, but it is what it is. And, it's one of those things where we kind of needed to do it, or at least in the beginning. Now at this point, it doesn't even we would have to go into complete full lockdown, and nobody wants to do that in order to control this virus. And so we're pretty much screwed at this point, unless we all get on the same page, but that's not going to happen. And so they're pushing this idea, these ridiculous things where they're saying, oh, it's not that, it's not a big deal. It's not, it's fine. Just go out and do, what you're going to do. And don't even worry about wearing masks. It's fine. Because either they can't, either the masks are too efficient that they block out oxygen and keep in carbon dioxide, which doesn't make any sense. or they don't do anything, and therefore you shouldn't even wear again, there's a lot of contradictions here, but if you're just a contrarian party, then you don't actually have to have facts on your side. And that's essentially what the Republicans are. And the people apparently that are running the Herman Cain account, they're just being contrarian, even though Herman Cain literally died from COVID-19. And so, very ironic, especially given how now 6 million people are infected in the United States. The death toll is 183,000 now as of today, or at least the latest numbers. And so it's a little strange saying that it's not as deadly. Yes, it does happen to affect or at least kill more people who are older or have underlying conditions. But again, we don't even know the long-term impacts of having COVID-19 on regular people who generally were considered to be fairly healthy. So there's that. Now, the tweet, of course, was deleted for obvious reasons, but not before it got a lot of pushback from both comedians and other officials. Let's see. Here you've had first comedian Patton Oswalt saying that this is the sassiest surprise I'm a zombie now announcement ever. A lot of snark in this, which is what we need. Don Linswell says, can we dig up Herman Cain and have independent doctors confirm this? Do you know how effing creepy it is that you continue to tweet from this account? Yeah, it is really kind of strange. A doctor tweets, ironic, person Herman Cain who died of COVID-19 tweets from the dead to tell us that COVID is not as deadly as it is made out to be. P.S. Bonus for also tweeting a false 6% conspiracy theory. Please report this account for fake name. Cain's dead. Yeah. Let's see. Intellectual Duckweb, which is a great name, said, losing my mind that Herman Cain's zombie Twitter account is tweeting conspiracy nonsense about how COVID isn't real, despite the fact that Herman Cain died from COVID. Yeah, it's really, really kind of a strange thing. Lee Carter says, this is the same virus that killed Cain you're talking about, right? No, it must be different. Has to be. A lot of other stuff here. Let me just go to Cody Johnson here, who said, sir, the virus killed you. You died from it. I know. Conservatives are saying, oh, but no, it's not that. It's just that he happened to have it and was in the hospital as a result of complications from it. But he didn't actually die from it. He died from something else. Well, of course, again, that's a misrepresentation of the science and how actual death certificates are also written up. And so you might want to actually, ask real doctors and scientists about this. So before you kind of spout off on things that you don't necessarily know a lot about. But one more here. Does Herman Cain, who died a month ago of COVID-19, still tweeting that COVID-19 is a hoax, count as a zombie apocalypse? Asking for my bingo card. Apocalypse bingo, man. I feel like we've had a lot of spaces filled on that. The reason I'm reading this story is that this is an example of the insanity of the Republican Party and how they're not a serious party. They're not the conservative movement is not a serious movement. It's contrarian. That's all it is. I mean, they're going to own the libs even if it kills them, right? And when it does, instead of donating their body to science, instead, they're going to use it to push contrarian bullshit on the rest of the world, or at least the rest of the country. Okay? Understand, we're not dealing with a reasonable, open-minded party or group of people here. Okay? We're dealing with people who are radical, a radical death cult that would prefer that a lot of us die so that they're able to go and be right and prove the commie libs wrong. And judging on a lot of the comments I get on a lot of videos and social media, it seems like all they want to do is exactly that. All right. One more here. We have an update in the story of Brianna Taylor. It appears that new documents posted by the attorney of Taylor's family allegedly show that prosecutors had offered her ex-boyfriend a plea deal in which she would be implicated as part of his drug dealing operation. So now this is insane. And let me give you the details and why this is an awful smear attempt, right? So now Louisville-based attorney Sam Aguiar, who's representing Taylor's family in a civil lawsuit against the 3 police officers who shot her earlier this year during a no-knock raid. Of course, they tried to justify this by saying, well, there were drugs. And we had to go in and raid this house and shoot, Brianna Taylor 8 times and shoot the apartment over 20 times because of drugs. For one, drugs should be legalized or at least decriminalized. If you actually care about freedom, then you shouldn't care about what people put into their own body. I'm just saying. But there's that. But also, having the police be able to do no-knock raids that are usually very well signed off, very easily signed off in courts and approved, allowing this to happen, leading to the deaths of people unnecessarily. You shouldn't support that. You shouldn't support that. So that said, right? Now, let me give you more details. So now, Aguiar posted photos of the documents on Facebook that show ex-boyfriend Jamarcus Glover was offered a deal in which he would have to implicate Taylor in his own crimes. Again, these are not crimes that Taylor was a part of, right? Taylor wasn't dealing drugs. She wasn't complicit in his drug scheme. He was. And they tried to offer him that plea deal after the fact, posthumously, right? After she was killed by police officers. So now Commonwealth Attorney Tom Wine tried to give Elliott Ave defendants a plea deal on July 13th, which would have identified Brianna Taylor as a co-defendant for actions related to the arrests on April 22nd, 2020. Police originally justified the no-knock raid on the apartment where Taylor lived because Glover had purposely used it as a place to store drugs. The only difference is there were no drugs. If they had found drugs, then maybe they would have had a case, right? Now, that still doesn't justify the murder of Brianna Taylor, but at least you could say, well, they had a reason to search the apartment, which they did not. They had no reason to search that apartment and no reason to unjustly murder this woman. And so now let me read you the post here, right? So now Commonwealth Attorney Tom Wine tried to give Elliott Avenue defendants a plea deal, which would identify her as a co-defendant. When was Brianna Taylor ever a co-defendant? By the way, cops killed her a month and a half before April 22nd and 4 months to the day before the date of this effort to get a plea deal, which was thankfully rejected. This goes to show how desperate Tom Wine, in case anyone was running, whose office distributed one-sided information, is to justify the wrongful search of Brianna Taylor's home, her killing, and the arrest of Kenneth Walker. Now, Kenneth Walker was the current boyfriend who, when these plainclothes officers barged into the house, returned fire because, and again, this is where conservatives should be like, yeah, he was just defending his home against these intruders. And for some reason, a lot of them either were silent about this or were like, police were justified. Weird how whenever it comes to black people being unjustly shot, you tend to have conservatives that, line up to choke the boot. Kind of weird how that happens. Very, very strange. Very strange. But unfortunately, so I wonder if there's a racial component to this. Weird. But look, trying to make her a co-defendant in this case, way after the fact, reeks of desperation to try to justify, again, the murder of somebody who is innocent. She did not commit any crimes, was not in the process of committing any crimes, and wasn't linked to any crimes. She was an innocent bystander who was unjustly murdered by police, and they still tried to smear her. They still did it. They still tried to do it. It's amazing. Amazing. So now, going back to Aguirre, he says, thank God his office recused itself, as we sure as hell know what they would have done, and shame on that office. Brianna Taylor is not a co-defendant in a criminal case. She's dead. Way to try to attack a woman when she's not even here to defend herself. Well, I mean, dead people tell no tales, right? So they can't talk. They can't defend themselves. They can't put together their, own defense because they're dead. I mean, look, part of me makes me think that that's exactly what they wanted to do to Jacob Blake. Unfortunately for them, they don't get to do that because he survived. He survived, and now hopefully he'll be able to tell his story. And so this is what happens, unfortunately, when you have police departments that are corrupt and that are filled to the brim with racists and white supremacists. I've showed you a video of the Kenosha police. For one, chief of police blaming the protesters for being out after dark, after curfew, while also letting the the right wing counter protesters be able to be out past curfew without a problem. In fact, they supported them, gave them water, and said, "We appreciate you being here." And then you also had another Kenosha sheriff saying that we just need to lock people away. We need to warehouse them with no time. Let them die out in prison so they don't have kids or families or anything like that. So that's what we're dealing with Kenosha police. And in another video, I talked about how, white supremacists have been infiltrating police for quite some time. And this is the state of our policing, where there are groups of people who literally don't see black people as human beings, much less Americans with inalienable rights. So this is what's happening. And, I'm thankful that appeal was rejected in this case, but it's absolutely infuriating to see them try to smear a dead woman for, with a crime that she did not commit, when in reality, it was the police that were doing crime. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps us out greatly. Become a patron or a channel member. Donate to our GoFundMe campaign. We'll have some exciting news, an update on that by the end of the week. So I'll show you the progress on that. So look forward for that. As well as, of course, our new a guest on a podcast. So that's coming up. All right. That's it. Thank you, guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys later.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Please clap.
Mike Pounds. Tolerate.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.